Two big nights for non-playoff teams from a season ago. Welcome to NHL Wraparound Short Shifts for Friday, January 23rd, 2026. Vic Morren going solo again. Neil setting out from South Carolina to New Jersey. Beat this massive snowstorm that is going to hit over the weekend. So every one of these shows, we look for some sort of hook, some sort of theme to kind of build our content around. And in this particular show, I'm going to be looking at 10 teams over the course of the last two nights, all of which missed the playoffs in 2025, but had notable performances over the past 48 hours. And we're going to start with the Detroit Red Wings, who, despite losing in overtime in probably the most entertaining game on Thursday night to the Wild 4-3 on an overtime goal by Kirill Kaprizov, they still managed to take 3 out of 4 points because on Wednesday, they beat the Toronto Maple Leafs in overtime. John Gibson, a 7-game winning streak, and this comes on the heels of an 8-game winning streak earlier in the season. And you remember how much he struggled kind of finding his way in Detroit at the start of his run there? Well, now he is being touted for the Vezina Trophy. So after Thursday's games, Detroit leading the Atlantic Division by 1 point, 67-66 over Tampa Bay. However, the Lightning have played 4 fewer games. The Buffalo Sabres keep rolling. Now 17-3-1 in their last 21 games. They beat the Canadiens 4-2 in the Bell Center. Buffalo got out quickly, led this game 3-0, but it got to 3-2 midway through the second period. Sabres were outshot 15-3 in that stanza. But after the second Canadiens goal, Lindy Ruff called his timeout, really chewed his team out on the bench for kind of letting up off the gas. They responded, played much better the rest of the way. Peyton Krebs added an empty net goal, and the Sabres now in wild card 1, 6 points out of first in the Atlantic with 2 fewer games played than Detroit. The Boston Bruins. And perhaps this was a trap game for the Vegas Golden Knights as they will be playing in Toronto against the Maple Leafs on Friday. That'll be Mitch Marner's much anticipated return there. But the Bruins took advantage. They scored 3 times in a 54-second span in the first period, took a 4-0 lead into the third. The Golden Knights then got the wake-up call, outshooting the Bruins 20-5. And you get the feeling watching this game that had this one gone another 2 minutes, that Vegas would not only have tied the game, but perhaps won it in overtime. However, the Bruins managed to hold on. They get the win. They head into the weekend as the second wild card in the Eastern Conference. Move over to the Metro. The Pittsburgh Penguins playing the second game on a back-to-back. They had beat Calgary on Wednesday, and they faced their former goaltender, Tristan Jarry, for the first time since that trade where Stu Skinner was swapped for Jarry. Skinner sat this game out, having played in Calgary the night before. And for Jarry, things didn't go exactly as planned. It's a 6-2 win for the Penguins against the Oilers. They score 3 goals in 37 seconds. In the first 2 minutes and 57 seconds of the first period, Anthony Mantha had a pair. Sidney Crosby with an exquisite redirection to get that third goal. 6 goals against on 22 shots for Jarry. In a game that Leon Draisaitl did return for the Oilers after missing 3 games, being away in Germany to tend to a family illness. But the Penguins got to give all the credit in the world to Dan Muse and the job that he has done behind that Pittsburgh bench. A lot of support players doing an excellent job. We just spoke about Mantha, who has been terrific this season for them. The Penguins, second in the Metro, 6 points behind Carolina with a game in hand. The Columbus Blue Jackets, still in wild card 9, have a long way to go to get back into bubble contention. Still win their 4th in 5 games under Rick Bowness with a 1-0 win over the Dallas Stars. And Bowness has been stressing how much he wants to see this club improve defensively, hold on to leads late in game. We have mentioned numerous times how many points the Blue Jackets have left on the table this season. In this game, Zach Werenski scores in the first period, and it stands up behind the goaltending of Jet Greaves, who has 28 saves. And this game was also the 1,000th for forward Charlie Coyle, and the team celebrated him with shirts and hats. His dad gave the pregame speech, announced the starting lineup, and Coyle actually had an empty net goal in the final seconds waved off, but nonetheless, a big win for Columbus. And if they can start to hold on to leads and build off of this win and play solid defensive hockey, there's still enough racetrack left for them to get back into the wild card race. Let's now go to the Western Conference. The Anaheim Ducks, on a 5-game winning streak, they get a 2-1 shootout win in Colorado on Wednesday. Lucas Dostal, exceptional in this game, 40 saves. The Ducks are 6-0 in shootouts, but more importantly, they're figuring out how to play defensive hockey, because in this 5-game streak, they have only given up 8 goals. They had surrendered 45 in the 0-8-1 slide that preceded this winning streak. The Ducks played this game without Troy Terry, Leo Carlson, and Mason McTavish, who was a late scratch. He took the warm-up, may have tweaked something, so he sat that game out. It's called an upper body injury. Head coach Joe Quenneville does not believe to be serious. The Ducks enter the weekend third in the Pacific, 55 points. They trail Edmonton by only 3 points, and they have 2 games in hand. The Utah Mammoth, with perhaps their most significant win since moving over from Arizona prior to the start of last season, they trailed the Philadelphia Flyers 3-0 and then 4-2 in the third period on Wednesday before coming back for a 5-4 win in overtime. Sometimes it's easy to miss plays that don't make the score sheet, but with the score 4-3 and an empty net for the Flyers, Garnet Hathaway entered the Utah zone, had a shot at the empty net, took a little bit too much time. Nick Schmaltz came in from behind, stripped him of the puck. Clayton Keller and Jack McBain also made key defensive breakups, which led to the heroics, with Keller outmuscling Travis Sanheim along the boards. He tied the game with 35 seconds left in regulation. That goal was the first ever for the Utah franchise with the extra attacker. So they get the game to overtime, and then Dylan Guenther, who had scored the goal to make it 4-3, set up Keller for the overtime heroics. The Mammoth enter the weekend wild card 1 in the West. Another big comeback taking place in Nashville in a game where team captain Roman Josi celebrated his 1,000th game, all of them with the Nashville Predators. The Preds were down 3-0 and then 3-1 heading into the final period. They score 4 times to beat the Ottawa Senators 5-3. Steven Stamkos with the hat trick, including the game-winning goal with 1 minute and 13 seconds left in regulation. Ryan O'Reilly had 3 assists. The Predators continue to push their way up the standings. They enter the weekend wild card 5, just 1 point out of the second wild card position. And for the Senators, This is absolutely a brutal loss because not only do they blow the lead, they don't even get the game in overtime. 2 points left on the table. They head into the weekend, wild card 8 in the Eastern Conference, 7 points behind the Bruins for that second wild card position. And not to be outdone, the Chicago Blackhawks, still hanging around, 6th in the wild card in the West. They get a 4-3 shootout win in Carolina on Thursday. Oliver Moore, rookie, his 21st birthday, gets the shootout winner. But perhaps more notably for him was in the second period of this game, teammate Nick Lardis took a big hit from Alexander Nikishin. Perfectly clean hit, but as we see so often in the NHL, anytime there's a clean hit delivered, somebody has to step in and challenge the guy that delivered the hit. In this case, it was Moore, who was giving up 30 pounds and 4 inches to Nikishin and took the silver medal in this fight. Ended up with a pretty good gash under his eye, but nonetheless showed a lot of courage and winds up winning the game in the shootout. He actually had a chance to win the game in overtime on a breakaway and was stopped by Freddie Anderson. But nonetheless, this is a great win for Chicago. As I said, they enter the weekend in the 6th wildcard position, only 4 points back, but a lot of teams to jump over. We have spoken a lot over the last couple of weeks about the Vancouver Canucks and their fall from grace, winning the Pacific Division a couple of seasons ago, and now last in the overall NHL standings with little chance of escaping the basement this season. And on Wednesday, they took an 11-game winless streak into their contest with the Washington Capitals. And before that game, head coach Adam Foote, who had just received a vote of confidence from GM Patrick Alvin, called on his veterans to step their games up. And at least for one night, the team responded. They bounced off the mat, trailing 2-0 early, and could have packed it in. But instead, they rally. They get goals from Brock Besser, Evander Kane, and Philip Hronek, and they beat the Capitals 4-3. But now let's flip this over to the Capitals because they come into the weekend 6 points out of the second wild card. This is a team that won the Eastern Conference a season ago, with Spencer Carberry's team being very difficult to play against in through the neutral zone, not allowing a lot of scoring chances against. Yes, they have had a ton of injuries this year, as all teams have, perhaps most notably Pierre-Luc Dubois on both sides of the puck. But nonetheless, this is a club that's getting itself into trouble. And while I wouldn't call it critical mass just yet, it's getting close. So now, with about 61% of the league schedule now complete, I'm going to bring some projections back into the mix here. And I know that a lot of people like to look at percentage chances and this, that, and the other thing. I think it's nonsense. I like to deal in real numbers. And so that's what we're going to do here. And in the Eastern Conference, Boston sets the bar as wild card 2. They are projected to reach 96.5 points. So for the teams that are trailing them, that's the bar entering this weekend. And in the Western Conference, considerably lower, with the bar being set by Seattle, San Jose, and Los Angeles, all with 53 points, all having played 49 games. The bar in the West, 88.7 entering the weekend. So, of course, this is something that we're going to now start tracking more frequently as we head to the Olympic break and then the stretch drive on the back end. Let's now check out some personnel notes, and we'll start with the injuries. For the New Jersey Devils, defenseman Luke Hughes is now on LTIR after suffering an upper body injury in Calgary on Monday. He is electing to have rehab as opposed to surgery, the hopes that he'll be able to return sometime after the Olympic break. Colton White has been called up as a replacement, but you also have to wonder whether or not this will have any effect on whether the Devils are going to trade Dougie Hamilton, because, of course, that has been rumored out there for the last couple of weeks. For the Ottawa Senators, forward David Perron, expected to miss 5 to 7 weeks with a sports hernia. For the Pittsburgh Penguins, defenseman Chris Letang missed both Wednesday's game in Calgary and Thursday's game in Edmonton with an upper body injury. The club did get back Erik Karlsson against the Oilers. He had not played since January 11th. And in another note for the Penguins, defenseman Ryan Graves heads to IR. For the Calgary Flames, forward Jonathan Huberdeau missed Wednesday's loss to Pittsburgh with a lower body injury. He is day-to-day. But the team did get back Martin Pospisil. It's his first game for the season for the Flames after he suffered a head injury during training camp, was also dealing with some other issues as he was going through his rehab and attempting to return to play. So good to have him back in the Calgary lineup. News coming out of the Toronto Maple Leafs camp Friday morning, defenseman Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Brandon Carlo, who both left the overtime loss to the Detroit Red Wings on Wednesday, participated in the morning skate, but it is not known whether or not they're going to play Friday night against the Vegas Golden Knights. But somebody that definitely is going to play, goaltender Anthony Stolarz, will be getting his first action in the NHL since November 11th. He had been on a conditioning stint with the Toronto Marlies. And one other return to note, Chicago forward Frank Nazar came back into the Blackhawks lineup in the shootout win in Carolina. He had missed 14 games with a broken jaw. And actually, I lied, because there is one pending return to report. The Canucks can use all the good news that they can get. Philip Hedl, who has been out since October the 19th, will return after a 44-game absence. He will play on a line with Brock Besser and Drew O'Connor. Let's hit some Olympic news, and injuries surrounds this as well. Anaheim Ducks defenseman Jackson Lacombe has been named to replace Seth Jones on the U.S. team. You remember Jones took a puck up high early in the Winter Classic on January 2nd. And for the Swedish team, we'd already mentioned Leo Carlsson of the Ducks earlier in this show, and he is expected to miss the games. He had that thigh procedure and is expected to be out 3 to 5 weeks. Also, probably missing the Olympics, Minnesota defenseman Jonas Brodin with an upper body injury. He has not played since January 12th. The status for Leafs forward William Nylander may also be in doubt. So for the Swedish team, this is a mash unit before the team even gets on the plane to head over to Italy. And injuries aren't just restricted to things going on the ice. Red Wings TV analyst Mickey Redmond will be undergoing spinal fusion surgery. He expects to be back after the Olympic break. Redmond scored 50 goals twice in his career for the Red Wings in 1973 and 1974. He's been an analyst since 1979 and won the Foster Hewitt Award in 2011. And a couple of contract extensions to share. Buffalo forward Josh Doan, 7 years, just under $49 million, 6.95 AAV. And Boston forward Alex Steeves, 2 years, $3.25 million in total. Our website is NHLWraparound.com, and in our blog section, Patrick Hoffman's latest New York-centric, the New Jersey Devils, starting to right their ship. They're currently 2-0 on their Western road trip, which concludes in Vancouver and Seattle. And also, Smith's picks. And for quite a while, we have been touting a great run that Neil has had with his game selections, but that thud that you heard was the result of that run coming to an end on Thursday night. And if you're a head coach, you just say, throw the game tape away and let's get back on the horse the very next night. So check out his picks for Friday evening and every day exclusively on NHLWraparound.com. If you listen to us on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or iHeartRadio, or any platform, and you have the ability to leave us a review, please do so. Neil and I would really appreciate that. And if you check us out on YouTube, please subscribe. And speaking of which, let's welcome 4 new members to our subscriber family: Mitch McReady, Zachary Batt Mortgage Broker, Bobber T, and Market 38. Welcome aboard. And one other note to leave you with: very often we check out rankings and see where our reach is, not only in North America, but across the globe. And NHL Wraparound is the #1 hockey podcast 3 days running in Serbia. So to our listeners there, thank you so much for tuning in. With a major snowstorm coming into the east coast of the U.S. this weekend, nothing better to do than stay inside and watch some great hockey. Take care, and we'll be back with Short Shifts on Monday.